In these pans behind me is a smothered pork steak with roasted potatoes. I also made some green beans. You want to learn how to make it? I'm being attacked by a dog. You want to learn how to make it? Stick around and watch this video. The pork I'm going to use for this are bone-in loin chops. Now you can use any pork chop you like. You can even use chicken breast. It works really well for this too. In addition to the pork, you're going to need a small onion. I'm going to use a white onion. You can use yellow onion, that's fine. And potatoes. Generally speaking, you're going to want one good sized baking potato per person that you're cooking for. So I'm going to make 5 portions. I've got 4 really big potatoes instead of using 5 small ones. You also need a can of cream and mushroom soup. Now I'm going to use a big can, one of the 26-ounce cans, and you need some fresh mushrooms. When you're cooking, you always want to have a helper in the kitchen. Barkley thinks he's helping. So, all right, to do these pork chops, the new version of this, the one thing I want to do first is make the sauce they're going to cook in. So I'm going to start with some whole white mushrooms. And I'm just going to, Barkley, I need you to get out of the way. We're going to put some of these into our food processor. Enough to just cover the blades, in fact. We're already doing it. Let's just use the whole container. Got a full food processor of mushrooms. I got a cat in the way. We're just going to set these on chop for about 20 seconds or so. Once those are nice and chopped up, just go ahead and take the top off. Make sure you've got a few large pieces left, but mostly small pieces. And then we're going to add a can of mushroom soup. When I said a can, I mean a big one. This is a 26-ounce can of condensed mushroom soup. And I'm just going to put the whole thing, as best I can, into the food processor. Once again, Barkley is trying to help. Say hi. Okay, before we run this is so thick that I'm going to add about 3/4 of a can of half and half into that. Let it kind of mix down in. And you'll know, I mean, you don't want to get it over to your liquid line, but you want it to bubble in. As far as the potatoes go, the plan is to peel these and then slice them into fairly thin slices, not potato chips, a little thicker than that. And those are going to go on the bottom of the pan. Your onion, we're going to dice up. Now you can do this by hand, or you can cheat and throw it in a food processor. It really doesn't matter. If you've never diced an onion in a food processor, all you got to do is peel the onion, cut it in quarters, throw it in there, and set it on chop. So I've got my potatoes peeled and sliced. I slice them by hand. If you want to use a mandolin for uniform slices, that's fine. But generally speaking, I've got some thick slices that are almost a ½ an inch, all the way down to some slices that are about an 1/8 to a 1/16. So I'm trying to stay around that 1/4 inch. So they've got a little girth to them, but at the same time, they're not huge chunks of potato. Next thing we're going to do is put a little color on the meat. And like I said, I'm using pork. I've got 7 cuts here for 5 people because I know my boys. I'm also going to remind you, you could do this with chicken. You could do this with a game meat. You could even do it with beef if it was very lean, like a sirloin or something like that. Even top round would probably be all right. I've got my chopped onion fresh out of the food processor. I've got some Chef's Chamois garlic butter from Sam's. And then I'm going to use a little bit of seasoning. And the key here is not to over season this. So we're just going to use a little bit of the blend, salt, pepper, and garlic. And I'm going to use just a little bit of Cavender's Greek seasoning. So what I'm going to do is drop in about 2 tablespoons of garlic butter. You could use olive oil. You could use regular butter. You could use whatever fat you like to cook in, I imagine. And I'm just going to let that start to render down. And as it does, then we'll go ahead and add the onion. We'll render that down a little bit. and then we'll start cooking the meat. I've got the heat on high so that butter starts to break down pretty quickly. As soon as you've got butter breaking down in the pan to where you can move it around, you're going to go ahead and drop in your chopped onion. And spread that throughout the pan as it gets hot. Go ahead now and add about a half of a teaspoon of each of your seasonings. And we're going to let this saute till those onions are nice and translucent and slightly caramelized. If you don't know what that means, I'll show you what it looks like. You do want to keep moving them pretty constantly. As soon as they start to sizzle, you need to move them. It's only been a couple of minutes, and these are already starting to get a little bit of color on them, and you can see through them pretty well. So they are ready to start cooking the meat. Now, this is a real simple process. You just lay a couple pieces of this in here, fill up your pan, let them cook for 2 or 3 minutes to get a little color, turn them over, do the same thing, scrape the onions off, put the next set in, and just continue to do that till you've got all the meat brown. Once you've got browning on all the meat, just set it to the side. You can turn the heat off on this pan because we're pretty well done with it. If there's any juice and onions in here, just kind of let them fall over that meat that you've collected on another tray. With the pork browned, potatoes sliced, sauce made, we're ready to put it all together. At this point, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Take a baking dish and put some spray-in olive oil, or if you prefer butter flavor, that's fine. But olive oil is going to have the simplest finish to it. This is just so the potatoes don't stick to the pan. You can use any kind of baking dish you like. I happen to like the glassware. From here, we're going to take some of these potatoes and just dump them into the bowl and kind of fill the bottom of the pan as best you can. And I like to get them around the outsides too, if possible. Now, I've got enough potatoes to do 2 pans because I've got pork for 2 pans. Okay. Once you have that together, now you're just going to go ahead and lay in some of your meat like so. And then cover that with your sauce. Just pour it right over the top. Okay. Now just kind of move this around so it all incorporates. And if you want, you can top it with a little bit of cheese. Let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes before it goes into the oven, because you want that to settle over all those potatoes. Since you were here, I dusted each one of these with about a teaspoon of each one of the seasonings, and then just a light cover of cheese, and they're ready to go in the oven. They're going to bake at 350 for about an hour and a half, and at that point you're going to check the doneness of the meat and the potatoes with a fork. If it needs a little longer, let it keep going, but don't let it cook dry. If you have to add a little bit of cream or milk, that's fine, but just don't let them cook dry. Well, as you can see, Barkley and I are back, and it is time to take the dinner out of the oven. He's been patiently waiting. He's laying here on top of the dishwasher because it's nice and warm on top of the countertop. It's his favorite spot. They're done. Let's take them out. All right, so I turned the heat down about 30 minutes ago to 250, and I'm going to turn it off completely here in a moment. While you were away, I made some fresh green beans, which will serve with that. So we're going to turn this off and take them out of the oven. These are going to need to sit and rest for at least 20 minutes because you can see they're still boiling. As that thickens up and sets, the potatoes are done. You'll serve it real simple. Just take a piece of meat out, set it on the plate, surround it with some potatoes, pour some of that gravy over the top, and gotta have a helping of green beans. As you can see, Barkley has been patiently waiting, And now it's time to dish up the food. We also have a guest in the house that he's not really excited about. Let's see if we can flip the screen here. She's a little busy eating, so she might be calm for 2 minutes. Yeah. Hi, Viv. Tail wagging, bowl full of food. Now let's fill up some plates. So unfortunately, I've got a lot of background noise because I have loud people. It's real simple. We're going to take a piece of pork, set on the plate, and then grab some of our potatoes. So like I said in the beginning, if you'd rather do this with chicken or another meat, feel free. The process is exactly the same, but this is a great meal. Until next time, eat fabulous. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.